is Paul. Yes. As I was just talking about, yeah, the petitioner, yes, known as Heidi Budnick, yeah, it's her obligation to give to law enforcement, yes, the actual address that they can attempt service. Right, right. Now, this homo respondent's instructions tells her which restraint and law enforcement enters statewide data. Yes. Helpful to ask the courier which was to fill out the order. Now, if it wasn't the petitioner, yes. On June 1st, yeah. And it wasn't the petitioner on June 12th, yes. And you say you attempted two attempts of service, but you used the last address on the last protection order, yes. When I moved to Centralia, lived in a single man shelter in Centralia, yes. And then the law requires the order to say if the respondent received notice of the hearing by what method? Yes. Now, usually it would say service by mail, yeah, personal service or service by publication. But obviously, if the petitioner didn't acknowledge it, she wasn't there, and if she wasn't there, she didn't fill out the information. So what you decided to do was to use my last known address, an address that I hadn't resided at for 3 years. And then you decided that anything and everything that was sent to that address, the United States Postal Service, yes. These two attempts of service, Sheriff, Paul, you, you have no idea. Now, since it wasn't the petitioner that motioned the court, and she didn't want to reissue it on June 1st of 2015, and she did realize it didn't expire for 93 days, yes. And you did decide to reissue it before the amount of time allowed by law to reissue protection orders? Yes, because it was fraudulent what you did. And then there was no attempt of service, no personal service? Right. But, well, what person continued to use the last known address that the failures to appear were sent at, yes, that was used to issue the protection order, that the petitioner herself would say he doesn't live at 1023 Kitchen Dick Road, because they did know that I didn't live there because I had moved there on December 20th of 2011. Sheriff, why don't you tell me who filled out this protection order? Because under that penalty of perjury, yes, whomever it was that took it upon themselves to continue to use this address, Jefferson County, yes, and then took it upon themselves to continue to use this address, State of Washington, yes, and they took it upon themselves to continue to use this address, Squim, Washington, yes. It would seem to me that the individual that actually filled out the information of where I resided, yes, intentionally, fraudulently put a wrong fucking address. Now, you don't understand how much I dislike you. When you, under the penalty of perjury, fill out a court order superior, Court of Washington for Clallam County, yes. And I tell you that it's fraudulent to not give me any actual notice of the hearing, yeah. And somebody other than the petitioner fills out the information before the 90 days allowed by law, yes. And then you as a sheriff's department decide to attempt service on myself, right. Um, the fraud, yeah, of not having the acknowledgement of the petitioner of the order means that it must not acknowledge some other information that I haven't been able to see because I'm not the individual that motioned the court. Yes, that's right. Now, why don't we look at all the documents that I don't have, yes, that put down the fraudulent address of 1023 Kitchen Dick Road? Yes. And then why don't we call the United States Postal Service? Mhm. Now, it's one thing to use taxpayer funds, right, to pay for the stamp. Yeah. It's another thing to use a stamp to send a notice to an address where the mail's returned unclaimed. Yes. And as I remember the dissolution of marriage, right, that happened sometime in 2012. Yes. But mail returned unclaimed on 114 of 2013. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Declaration proposed. Mm-hmm. Now wait a second here. There might be another. Yes. But it's another thing to fraudulently put on court orders and notices of the court a fraudulent address. Yes. Now let's say the United States Postal Service did know. And I'm suing them for X number of hundreds of billions of dollars, and they think I won't get it, but I will. Pooch. Because I will. I'm going to own every one of those little trucks, every location. You will be renting from me the actual locations of every post office. I'll get myself one of those 25 to 30-year government contracts in every location of the United States. And instead of paying lease to somebody else, you'll be paying me. Because I'm absolutely fucking sure that anytime a court allows for fraudulence, yes, in violations of the penalty of perjury, of an address of a party to any court case, yes, and then has the United States Postal Service attempt service on the individual. It's not just penalty of perjury of the state of Washington. It's fraud on the United States Postal Service. Yes, it is. It's fraud on each and every state of the United States. And the federal fucking government and all their federal fucking employees that all know about. No, no, no. I will make absolutely sure.